Shalom, shalom. All praises to the Most High Yahweh, Bahashem Amashiach Yahweh Shah. All right, today we're going to get into a little known fact about the Liverpool slave trade. You see, they tell us about the transatlantic slave trade because it points towards Africa. They don't want to touch up on the Liverpool slave trade and the Bristol slave trade. All right? So we're going to get into the Liverpool slave trade and what was the Liverpool slave trade and where and who were the people that was caught up in the Liverpool slave trade. All right? Because if you don't know about the Liverpool slave trade, you're going to find out today. All right? Liverpool is in Europe. I believe England. All right? Liverpool played a central role in the British transatlantic slave trade, dominating the trade from the mid-1700s until the abolition in 1807. All right. Now, this from the Liverpool in the 1700s, the mid-1700s and up. This was during the cleansing, the ethnic cleansing of England, Ireland, and Scotland. All right. Where England, Ireland, and Scotland is where you blacks in the Americas and the Caribbean islands get your surnames from. All right? The Liverpool slave trade is y'all getting expelled out of England, Ireland, and Scotland into the Americas during the transatlantic slave trade, all right? But they don't teach about the Liverpool slave trade. You know why they don't teach about the Liverpool slave trade? Because if they teach about the Liverpool slave trade, they got to teach about the people they got to talk about the captives, all right? Who were the captives? All right, now, the captives are the people you black in the Americas and the Caribbean islands wear the surnames to. All right, they once held manors in the States, in England, Ireland, and Scotland, where their surnames is attached to. All right, and because of the fall of King Charles II and the Stuart family, Black Europe been expelled out of England, Ireland, and Scotland into the colonies of the North America and the West Indies, the Caribbean islands. All right? This is where most of you brothers in the West Indies get you surnames from. This is where most of you brothers in the 13 colonies of America get your surnames from. All right? It's from these black Europeans that got expelled out of Europe by Oliver Cromwell by way of the Liverpool slave trade. All right, so this is something new that I'm bringing to you guys, and I hope that y'all bearing witness and taking notes, all right? Because what happens is when you research this information, you have Edomite wild man Caucasians that will say, hey, that's our slavery. We were captives there. And I'm not going to be the one to say that's not true because that's correct. You guys were caught up in that slavery with us, all right? Because y'all was fighting on our side, fighting for King Charles and trying to restore the Black Stuart family back into royalty, all right? Due to the divine right of kings, that law, all right? So the Liverpool slave trade is something that they kings, that law, all right? So the Liverpool slave trade is something that they keep. You blacks in the Americas and the Caribbean islands hold the surnames to royalty, to forefathers that been blotted out or claimed by another race of people, which is the Caucasians, that came out of the forests and the mountains of Europe. All right. When Oliver Cromwell eradicated black Europe out of England, Ireland, and Scotland, he couldn't pay all his soldiers. So what he did was he gave them you guys property. He expelled y'all out of Europe and then gave the wild man Edomite Caucasian your manners, your states, all right? So this is something that you guys need to pay attention to because I hears a lot of British, the British and America beef, the UK beefing with America blacks, beefing with the UK blacks. A lot of y'all is kinfolks and y'all don't even know it. And a lot of the blacks of America hold hires to those ruins out there in Kent and out there in Kent, all out there in Ireland, Scotland, Wales, all those ruins, those belong to some blacks here in the Americas, all right, due to their surname. And only if they research their surname and do their genealogy, they could get the true facts of the situation. All right. So this is why the Liverpool slave trade is quiet. Because if they talk about the Liverpool slave trade, your history is gonna come oozing out of it, all right? Because they like to say, all right, the Liverpool slave trade was from Africa, it was Africans and Africans this and Africans that. No, those were not Africans. Those were black men in England, Ireland, and Scotland getting expelled out of the lands, getting shipped to Africa in the 13 colonies. So from Liverpool, England, they was going from Liverpool to West Africa, from West Africa to the Americas, all right, and vice versa, from Liverpool to the Americas to West Africa, all right. Now, this is why you'll find some people in West Africa with English, Irish, and Scottish surnames because it's coming from the Liverpool and the Bristol slave trade that they keep quiet. Now, if they speak about the Bristol and the Liverpool slave trade, all hell will break loose because the imposters that's wearing y'all surnames, that's wearing y'all histories, true nature is gonna show. All right, and they're gonna be known as, we all know that they're Caucasians, but it's gonna be hollow in the world. They're gonna be known as the imposter Edomite wildmen. They are. All right, and they don't want that history to come out. So they keep the Liverpool slave trade quiet because it'll let y'all know that y'all are royalty from England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, Germany. All right, they don't want that history to come out, you know? And then we could talk about the Bristol slave trade. All right, the Bristol slave trade, I believe, was a little before the Liverpool. All right, so our relatives was coming into the colonies from England, Ireland, and Scotland for centuries, and it was not Africa. That's the hijack. That's the lie. Why do they tell us that we all come from Africa? Because we have imposters, Edomite wildmen, Caucasians that's stealing our family heralds, all right? Our ancestors are the black Jacobites. Now, you may ask, who are the black Jacobites? The black Jacobites they were black and white soldiers, predominantly black, because we have the scrolls in books like Jacobite Gleaning from State Manuscripts. All right, so it showed the Jacobites. The Jacobites were a band of black covenanters. All right, with a sprinkle of Edomites who were indentured to the black covenanters, who fought for King Charles Stuart, for the Stuart family. It was trying to bring the black royalty back in power. All right. A lot of you brothers here in the Americas and the Caribbean islands get your surnames from them brothers, the Jacobites. Now, why that history is blotted out? Why they don't teach us about about the Jacobites? The Jacobites were prominent. All right, they fought prominent wars on America's soil. Why we don't know about them? All right, why we don't know about them? They fought for King Charles and they were black, And if you were to tie, and if you brothers in the Americas and the Caribbean islands was to tie back to the Jacobites, you tie back to royalty, you tie back to estates and manors back in England, Ireland, and Scotland. All right? The Jacobites really go back to Scotland. All right? So this is why we must inquire and do our genealogy and not let nobody tell us where we come from. You have to do your genealogy. You can't say that your name came from a slave master without doing your due diligence. You can't say that because you heard the next man say that. All right, we not. This is 2025. All right, you have to be responsible for your own, for yourself. So you can't jack nobody else genealogy. All right, because he got his surname from a slave master. He know that because he did his genealogy and found out his name was passed to him from a slave master. A lot of us can't find that in our history. A lot of us can't find that we have our we got our surnames from the slave master. What they would say is, oh, they sold us off to another plantation. Well, if they sold us off to another plantation, wouldn't we have the name of that planter? All right, it can is very rare that we find the case of a planter having the same surname as the so-called slave. Now they would say, so how did the black Americans, the black Aboriginal Americans get their surnames? Well, the Aboriginal black Americans got their surnames because it was brothers coming from the Jacobites was intertwining with the Native Americans, the black Native Americans. The black Jacobites was intertwining with the black Native Americans. They were freeing the black Native Americans. They were because the black Europeans was coming here as indentured servants. Even the white Europeans, they were also coming here as indigent servants. All right. After the black Europeans, indigent servants, they would be totally integrated into the into the black Aboriginal American community, and they would either buy the Aboriginal slave, or marry them. All right, and then they would make a family. All right, and that history is kept quiet. Why? Because they don't want us to know who we are, because we got inheritance here in the Americas, in the Caribbean islands, and your surname is the key point. All right, because when you do your genealogy, this is what can happen. You can either find out that your surname come from royalty of England, Ireland, Scotland, Germany, England, Ireland, Scotland, Germany, Wales, or you could find out that, and that alone, what I just spoke out, qualify for reparations and benefits, all right, from the government. I mean, which we will not get, but it's fuel for the fire. It's fuel for you to verbally chastise the system. Now, and then when you do it, when you do your genealogy, it also verifies whether you got your surname from a slave master. If that's verified, then you're literally owed reparations if you do your due diligence right. Because it was a case about the Cumberbatch family where I believe the Cumberbatch family received reparations from their slave masters because they adopted the name or what have you. Or the baddest thing you can happen when you do your genealogy is that you can find out that you got your surname from your forefather, which was a white slave master. All right, or a white indigent servant who came from England, Ireland, and Scotland, and married into a black family. Now, you know what I'm saying? Or he was a slave master, but the root of that is that your forefather was a Caucasian. That's the worst that can happen out of it. And I'm led to believe that the ones that hold this information are the ones that have forefathers that are our complexion black, but their forefathers are lily white. And they don't want that history to come out because they're not us. They're not Jews. They're not Israelites. All right? So this is why the Liverpool history and the Bristol history is kept quiet, because it'll open up Pandora box, all right? It'll have us going to and fro, all right? From England, Ireland, and Scotland to the Americas, all right? searching out who and where we came from. All right, because it's all in our names. This is why the Liverpool slave trade is quiet. All right, because it's listed now. Its names the Liverpool slave trade. A lot of the history and the slaves. I mean, the indentured servants been listed. All right, and it's books like Whence the Black Irish of Jamaica, Memoirs of the Secret Services. No, not Memoirs of the Secret Services of John Mackey Esquire, but Jacobite Gleaning from State Manuscripts is a book where it's a Liverpool boat, and it's prisoners from the Liverpool boat, and it's our forefathers, predominantly black, a sprinkle of white. I'm not even gonna say white. I'm gonna just say fair skin because it's labeled fair skin. All right, and it got our names and where we came from in Europe, coming into the colonies. All right, that book is held from us. Now, why is that book held from us? That book is held from us because it's a treasure there. It's a treasure that if we all was to hearken to this information that's being brought out, we could claim our true inheritance on the face of this earth, which we already know who we are. But in Europe, we can claim our inheritance in Europe. All right, because we got all the books. All the books is coming up, so it's nothing to be refuted. They can't refute it no more. You know. So this is why the Liverpool slave trade is kept quiet, because there's too much riches there, and they scared that if we get this information, if the right voice box get this information, it's up in the air. You know what I'm saying? The house gonna come tumbling. The roof gonna come tumbling down. You know what I'm saying? If this information was to come out, if it was to be hollow on the earth, a lot of Hebrew Israelite scholars don't even know this information. They talk about 70 A.D. and we came from Ghana, we came from West Africa into the colonies. That only pertain to like 8% of y'all blacks that's here in America, if that. You know what I'm saying? A very, very, very small few. A very small few. All right. A lot of you brothers came from England, Ireland, Scotland, and were already here. You know? This is why we got our names. If all of y'all would have came from Africa, y'all would have had a language. It would have been an African dialect in America. It would have been a rooted African dialect in America. But it's not. Because enough of y'all ain't come here. It was Afro-Europeans and native black Americans here. All right, and the French here. And the black Spanish here. The black Spanish. The black Spaniards. All right? Like, yo, the history is a movie. You just gotta be, you just gotta have ears to hear and eyes to see. And humble yourself and have a humble heart. All right? Because a lot of things you ain't gonna like what you hear. Like the colonizers that was putting us in the Liverpool, that was putting black people in the Liverpool slave trade. They were black. They started off black. But they don't want that history to come out. And one thing I learned about the Edomite wild man Caucasian is that he's so wicked, he will be the loser. He'll be the victor and the loser. He don't mind being the victor and the loser just to blot us out of history. He will name himself the devil just to blot us out of history. He'll be like, yeah, I was the slave master. Knowing he wasn't, just to blot us out of history. That's how wicked he is. He wouldn't even throw our shames on us. He want to take our shames, our good. He want to take everything. And that's how wicked these people are. And this is why the Liverpool slave trade is quiet. Because y'all be going back to England, Ireland, and Scotland looking at y'all castles like, damn, my forefathers once dwelt there. Going to the manors where your surname was literally founded. All right, in Cornwall, going back to Cornwall, England, and what have you, and Edensburg. Like, yo, this is where my family from. Because it's documented, you know. But I'm going to end this off here. I hope it was edifying. Shalom.